just kind of high level, not looking for specifics, but just generalities. Have there been any work on quantifying some of the costs associated with moving to net zero? You know, what's that going to cost Canada to move to net zero? Is that a number that has been looked into, or kind of a broad range? I've heard globally it's 3.5 or 4 trillion. What's that look like for Canada?
I would say that's a bit out of the ambit of our expertise from a financial sector policy perspective. That might be a question better placed with another ministry.
Okay. From the financial sector policy perspective, then, what about the disclosure requirements? What costs associated with that can market participants expect to be having to incur?
That's a good question. I don't have an empirical number in terms of cost of burden of whether it be securities commissions, provincial securities commissions, or OSFI in terms of how much will go into that. I think in the context of OSFI, they would look at it as these are risks to the institution that the institution should be mindful of and proactively monitoring and mitigating. And reporting is part of that transparency that they put into their guideline that was passed earlier this week.
Right. What's China doing in this space?
In
green finance, yeah. You know, are they doing any of this?
I don't have the specifics on hand with me today, although they are a member of the G20 and will be reporting on their progress publicly against a roadmap that a G20 group has set out, again, on disclosure and other elements of market infrastructure.
If they choose to do their own thing or not participate in some of the global standards, it's not going to matter what Canada does from a pollution perspective or getting to net zero. If them and other large emitters, Russia, Brazil, Canada's going to incur a lot of costs potentially for, potentially not really doing much work on the pollution reduction.
That's the time. We're moving to Liberals and MP Baker.
Thanks very much, and I'm going to cede my time to Madame Chatel.
Okay, Madame Chatel.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. The question from MP Chambers is an important one, but I'm seeing it from the reverse side. The G20, with all the ministers of finance, clearly established that it is only a question of time, but that at one point we are all going to require financial institutions to have a net zero portfolio. They will have to be. And some banks in Europe already are. They have an action plan to get there. So in such a world where the G20, the financial institutions of Europe, China, and other countries, they are all saying, there you go, we will have a net zero portfolio. What will be the impact on Canada if it does not work as you are doing on putting in place the infrastructure, the information, and the standards in order to be ready to deal with this? And in order to be successful in this market and in this sector.
The Conservatives for 5 minutes. MP Hallan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to use my time to give notice of the following motion here at the public meeting of the Finance Committee. The motion reads that given interest rates are at the highest level since the 2008 recession and mortgages have significantly increased since 2015, the Standing Committee on Finance undertake a study on the impact of inflation and interest rates on mortgages in Canada, and that the study includes, but is not limited to, the increase in the number of mortgages hitting their trigger rate and the number of mortgages that have had their amortization period increased beyond 25 years. That the committee include in its witness list the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, and representatives from the Big Six Canadian banks, that the committee take no less than 4 meetings for this study, and that the committee report its findings to the House. Mr. Chair, I think this study is very important given the climate of today's of the economy today. And we've seen how housing and mortgages have become more unaffordable than ever for Canadians. I hear firsthand from Canadians about the pain they're facing because of rising interest rates and inflation brought on by out-of-control spending by the government, single mothers unable to make raising mortgage payments, first-time homeowners having their mortgages hitting their trigger rates, and the dream of homeownership out of reach for so many young people. We see people making tough decisions whether they pay for shelter or for food. 1 in 5 Canadians are starting to skip meals. Recently, we also heard from banks such as RBC and CIBC, 20% of their mortgages are at a point where the borrower's monthly payments are not even covering interest costs. We also know now that mortgages are being extended beyond 25-year amortization, with questions about the effect this will have on borrowers and the mortgage market. All of this is concerning for homeowners and future homeowners. That is why I am giving notice of this important motion today. Thank you.